All right, we're back with the attitude of excellence. Now, the attitude of excellence, I think, is one of my absolute favorites. Ironically, it really seems countercultural to what we're seeing in the marketplace today. Let me tell you what I mean by that. What I see in the marketplace today is two generations and a giant generation gap, almost war of ideals. It was said in the last two elections, this isn't your grandpa's country anymore. And I think whether that's positive or negative in your opinion of politics, the facts point to that being absolutely true. Here's some indicators to me that I see. My grandpa grew up with the concept that you go to school, you finish high school, if you can, you go to college, and if not, you go to the military. Then you come back and go to college if you can. If you can't do that, then you go into a job and you work 30 years, you mortgage your house for 30 years. Ironic that you go to work at 20 and you retire at 50 or 60, and that's about the same time you pay off your house, and then you send your kids to college. And so in that window of time, you've bought a house, bought a car, sent your kids to college, finished your job, you got your pension, your house is paid off, and now you can live on less income. And that was kind of the pattern. So at some point you had to buy a house, whether it was a first home or a starter home or something of that nature. And at some point you had to get your college degree, and at some point you had to retire. Today we don't see that. We see young entrepreneurs starting businesses as early as high school. We see some going straight into vocational training while they're still in high school. We see startup companies. I worked not too long ago at a .com company, and the young man that sat across from me that I was kind of helping to train in sales, 19 years old, his freshman year in college, he quit school because he and some friends had come up with a business idea and were able to sell it to a major multinational corporation for a couple of $1 million. So here's this 19-year-old guy, he and some friends splitting $2 or $3 million 4 ways. And, he's pretty much set for a while, and if he invests that's right, may never have to work again at all. He certainly made more money by his 19th birthday than I have so far in my life. Well, maybe not. I haven't done all the math on that. But you follow me. That's an entirely different platform. It's an entirely different process than what my granddad went through. Now, here's something else. When you compare the two generations, on the one hand, you have the guys who every time something went wrong, they went off to war. Every time there was a challenge, they were there. I mean, Susie the Riveter is an example of how our society and our culture even stepped up to do jobs and tasks that seem way outside of their skill set to cover the basis for others who are going off to war. What we see today, though, is a sense almost of, well, for lack of a better word, a sense of entitlement. It's an attitude of entitlement, an attitude that says, hey, I showed up on the soccer field, I want a ribbon. There's no question as to whether or not they played in the game, were late or on time for the practice, even came to practice, whether or not the team won the game. At the end of the season, they all expect to get a trophy. Now, the challenge is you put those two people in the workplace, and on the one hand, you have the guy who says, I expect to work 40, 50 hours a week most of my life and then retire. And I expect to get paid a reasonable wage for that, and maybe from time to time get a bonus. And on the other side, you have a young person coming into the job who may or may not have a college degree, but their expectation, and I've interviewed hundreds now of high school students who are firmly convinced that when they get their college degree, their 4-year degree, they'll make $60,000 a year. My friends, there's just no reality to that. Maybe after 6 or 8 years, or maybe 12 or 16 years of education, $60,000 would be your starting salary. But unless you're in IT and you're an absolute genius, the odds of you stepping into a job first year out of college at 60 grand are really slim. In fact, there are a lot of people still working in the workforce who've been there 10 and 20 years in the same company, in the same job, not making 60. So that set of realities, they don't jive well. And so you have one, a boss, a supervisor, a team lead who has worked 40, 50, 60 hours a week, has put in their time, has busted their knuckles and done the hard work and sweated it out and lived on a paycheck and learned how to manage their budget. And the person they're having to supervise has this attitude that I can show up at work 5 minutes late and leave 5 minutes early, and I still get the same pay that he does. Not only am I expecting to get the same pay, but because I'm younger, I expect to get a little different preferential treatment. I mean, I want to be able to come in my flip-flops and shorts, even though he's wearing a suit and tie. or I want to be able to come in and kind of bend the rules or even break the rules to do what it is that I feel comfortable doing, accommodating my needs and my wants and my desires without regard for the rest of the organization, because this is a generation very focused on me. So when I say I love the attitude of excellence, I love the attitude of excellence because it really drives us and motivates us to do different things as they influence and inspire the people around us. So here's what you need to know about the attitude of excellence. If you're taking notes, you can write these down. It has 4 Ds, capped off by a big D. And when you have these 4 Ds in place, the attitude of excellence will drive your life in an entirely different way. The attitude of excellence demands, first D, discipline. You've got to do the hard work, and you've got to do it again and again and again and again and again. Doing the hard work once is not going to cut it. The second D, diligence. The attitude of excellence demands diligence. That means you don't just do the work and show up and keep showing up, but that you do it to the finest attention to detail. If mom says go clean your room, she doesn't come in there 5 minutes later and find everything you own shoved under the bed. That's not diligence. If you're asked to do a job and it means moving 62 file folders from one drawer to another, you don't move 50 of them and then go, oh, I'm tired, I'm going on a coffee break. That's not diligence. Diligence is doing it to the finest detail and doing it until it's as close to perfect as you can get. Excellence is not about perfection. It's about giving all the effort that you have with the best of your abilities, with the best of your skills, with the best of your knowledge, with the best of your gifts and education to accomplish the task at hand. That's excellence. It is not perfection. It's not setting up some pie in the sky standard that no one can live up to. The next D, number 3, is determination. And once you get past the discipline that just says I'm going to do it whether I want to or not, the diligence that says I'm going to do it and I'm going to do it the very best that I can. The determination looks at that and says, there's going to be a point where doing it and doing it the very best that I can gets really, really boring. Or it's really, really hard. Or I cannot see why I'm still doing this. Determination looks to the very end of the goal and says, this is why I'm doing it, because it's about my character. It's about my integrity. It's about the goals that I want to accomplish in life. It's about the person that I am, and I want the world to know who that is. And then the 4th D is dignity. And by dignity, I don't mean excellence doesn't demand that people give you dignity. It demands that you give dignity away. I don't mean giving up your own dignity. I don't mean bringing your character or your integrity into question. I mean having so much respect for others that when you see someone around you who is maybe just barely getting by, in the intro we talked about the influence of attitude, how you can hear someone who has a bad tone of voice, a bad attitude toward a particular circumstance, and by speaking into that circumstance with them with a more positive attitude, you have a chance to influence their attitude toward that as well. The facts don't necessarily have to change, just the way you look at them and the way you deal with them. So dignity, giving dignity to someone, is about how do you speak to others in the circumstances they find themselves in. And the attitude of excellence says, I want to speak to you in a way that makes you feel better about you. And it doesn't have anything to do with me. It's not about me. It's about how can I make you feel better about you. You are brilliant. You are capable. You are absolutely filled with potential that you may not even be aware of. And I want to see that come out of you. So here are some indicative phrases that you might hear when someone possesses an attitude of excellence. Hey, let me try that again. I believe I can do better this time. How about this one? Every tiny detail matters. Here's another one. Everyone, customers and employers, deserve my very best. When you hear those kind of phrases from an employee, from a friend, from a coworker, or someone at school, what you might recognize in them is an attitude of excellence, even if they don't know that's what it is. They have an attitude about the way they treat themselves, the way they treat the task at hand, and the way they treat others. That is an excellent attitude.